right. There are very few technicals on the street. Can we work out an arrangement whereby there won't be any technicals on the street?
Now, security is obviously the key issue at the moment, and there's no quick or easy way to achieve it, either here in the capital or in the outlying areas. We had been told that hundreds of Somalis were voluntarily handing over their weapons to the Marines, but there are obviously thousands of weapons still stashed away, ready to be rushed out for a spot of looting and extortion. Today, for instance, a lot of that went on in the streets of Mogadishu. A CNN camera was stolen, yet again at gunpoint, just 100 yards from a checkpoint by one of the French Foreign Legionnaires. CNN's Mark Darmage reports that the Marines here are facing quite a challenge.
For thousands of Somalis in Mogadishu, a shift of operations for one Marine unit from the airport to the U.S. Embassy grounds marked their first close-up look at the Americans who have come to help them. They liked what they saw. Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 9th Regiment, is a tough, disciplined point company for this operation. But the sudden turning of a routine truck convoy into a sort of victory welcome celebration caught the Marines by surprise.
It felt like a parade, like we're welcome, like they want us here. So it made me feel pretty proud to be American and be here.
Inside the gates of the American Embassy compound, closed since January 5th, 1991, when the Somali government fell, Echo Company went to work digging in.
So just put one gun up there facing that way, and one gun up there in front facing the whole front here.
Now in their second day of Operation Restore Hope in Somalia, the Marines are feeling good about the way it's been going.
So far so good. Like I said, we're really happy about what's happened so far. Can't complain at all.
Let's go, get out!
Because they are a point company, Echo Company is usually the first to arrive, to set up defenses and hold a position until the rest of the Marines are brought forward. At one point, a villager showed up, only to be politely but firmly told to leave. It is exactly the sort of thing that makes these men nervous.
We weren't really sure what it was. Kind of scary for a minute.
Sporadic rifle fire has been heard in Mogadishu ever since the Marines came ashore at dawn Wednesday. Echo Company said they thought they had been the subject of several rounds at the airport. So far, no one has been injured and the Marines have not fired back. At the U.S. Embassy grounds, the Marines hit the deck when a series of quick shots rang out.
Get out, get out!
Buildings on the compound have been thoroughly looted, and it's clear squatters have lived here for many months. It offers potential snipers good cover, so the Marines were quick to go through them just to make sure. At this point, Echo Company, in the words of one gunnery sergeant, is not even thinking about setting up tents. They will live in the ground and be ready to move out on short notice. The little glitches have not bothered these Marines, and in fact, they're more than a little pleased with the way these first days are turning.
Talks taking place against the background of Restore Hope, the American-led military operation, will be held at the U.S. Embassy in Mogadishu and on a French warship. The participants will be Mohamed Farah Aidid, Somalia's self-proclaimed president, and Ali Mahdi Mohammed, who controls the north of the capital. In Mogadishu, French legionnaires opened fire at a truck near a checkpoint, killing 2 Somalis and injuring 6. It was the most serious shooting incident since the arrival of the American and French troops.
There was drama on the streets of Mogadishu as the crackdown continued. A woman bystander knocked down by a runaway car thought to be carrying guns. The French Foreign Legion had fired a warning shot as the car veered off the road. The Legionnaires were putting up with no nonsense. It was the same story on every street, with roadblocks throughout the city as troops weeded out the weapons. Patrols were now moving into the murky suburbs controlled by the clan warlords. Though in the back streets there were still plenty of guns and possibly some resistance. Young Ahmed said he would die before he gave up his Kalashnikov. Though for the first time in 2 years, aid agencies were able to operate without security guards. The gun carts now dismantled, the men disarmed.
Guys who yesterday were carrying guns on our technicals outside are today working in the corridors, trying to be messenger boys and providing other manual tasks to ingratiate themselves to get another type of job with UNICEF.
At the airport, there was intense activity as the massive logistics operation built up, ready to start the relief mission. At feeding compounds like Kitchen 55, the people looked far better than when we first visited them 5 months ago. Then 20 a day were dying. Last week, there were only 3. but Hassan Hussein and his family told us the Americans must provide more than just food. He wants to return home to his village and start planting his crops. The relief effort still needed in Somalia is massive. The truth is that it's not just these people, the hungry, who are living off donated food. It's almost the entire population, some 7 million people, who are now dependent on relief supplies. Many Somalis wonder whether the Americans know what they're really taking on. Jeremy Thompson, ITN, Mogadishu.
As US Marines moved into Mogadishu, one of their first objectives was to secure the old American Embassy compound. The Marines are now bivouacked at the compound, which they're using as a base from which to stage an operation to push food aid into Somalia's interior.
The Marines headed off on a special task when they arrived in Mogadishu. It was both a mission and a memorial. They were going to secure the old American Embassy compound and to hoist the Stars and Stripes flag there. They were carrying the same flag that flew over the Marine barracks in Beirut before a car bomb killed 241 of their colleagues in 1983. It was the Marines' first foray into town, across the green line of the divided city. Shades of Beirut were everywhere. People watched the parade while the Marines watched the people, each trying to decipher the other's intentions, suspicion and caution. The convoy moved slowly through the once proud gates of the embassy compound, once America's involvement with Somalia was for strategic reasons in the Cold War with the Soviet Union. When that ended, so did US interest. It pulled out, leaving a well-armed population. Administrative breakdown was followed by warring factions and famine. Once inside the building, the Marines treated it like an enemy stronghold. What they saw was how it had been left after Somali warring factions had besieged US embassy personnel 2 years ago. At that time, they were rescued by Marines, and then the factions reduced the building to rubble. That might change now. There were setbacks before the flag could be flown, though. There was no ladder, and the Marine had to climb the pole the hard way. Eventually, he made it, and the symbolic gesture of retaking the embassy was completed.
The 1,700 US Marines currently in Somalia are just the beginning of America's commitment, which is expected to total about 28,000 troops. The US-led force will eventually involve 37,000 servicemen from 9 countries.
The long camouflage line of reinforcements has begun moving, the start of a build-up which is expected to take 2 or 3 weeks. Marines from Camp Pendleton in California left for a nearby airbase to catch the 22-hour non-stop flight. A ship carrying much of their equipment is already waiting for them off the coast of Somalia.
My company's here to offload that ship. The most important thing in the world, as soon as we hit the deck, there is no gear but what we take off that ship. Nobody can do anything without that.
Army troops from Fort Drum, New York will take longer to get there, since some of their heavier equipment must be moved by train and loaded aboard ship for the 2-week voyage to the Horn of Africa. The equipment is needed to open up the desolate interior of Somalia.
We'll be going there to improve the roads, keep the roads open so the convoys being relief supplies can get better to the distribution centers.
Unloading ships in Mogadishu is going to take some work.
Right now, we can take one ship at a time and offload it. Our intent is to expand that capability. I will tell you, it may take some dredging in order to bring ships pier-side.
Working conditions in Mogadishu are difficult, but so far, for American troops at least, they are safe. Hordes of cameramen with their blinding lights are the greatest obstacle.
The powers
to be convened in Somalia.
Military intervention alone is not enough. For every bowl of rice, we need 10 committed words of reconciliation. A national peace conference involving clan elders, leaders, and warring factions, with the help of the international community, through the UN Security Council, can facilitate the rebuilding of a governing body and civil societies in Somalia.
Sophia Loren believes discussion is needed after she visited needy Somalis and refugee camps in Kenya.
And they really talk about what they have to talk, not about little futile things. I think that we win this kind of war.
If nothing else, these celebrities hope their visits show the importance of the relief efforts now going on in Somalia. Cynthia Tornquist, CNN Entertainment News, New York.
It's a quick jump into operations and learning, but I'm ready for it.
We were helping out some people that, that need our help because they're being picked on by people who they can't protect themselves against. just lending them a hand, helpful hand.
Okay. Somalia.
I don't really know. Just, I guess they're just happy that we came into the country to help them out. So I guess that's why we're not getting any resistance at all. Or haven't been. We got like we hear gunfires out in town. That's about it. We haven't had any trouble. Just that's about all that's been going on. There are some people that, they're glad to see us here. But it makes me feel good to know that people want us here, but still, I'm glad that I don't live here because what I see right now, today really made me realize, I'm glad I'm American right now.
Get food out, that's about it. That's about all we know. We expect a lot more of it. These people are real nice, they just back off and just do their own thing. It's good to go.
People have been shot at around here, so we have to keep this area clear here. So we want to make sure nobody gets in or out.
It's kind of hard to keep the Somalians out there. We got resupplied of water today, and they're just mobbing us. It's hard to keep them out, and it's kind of hard to eat in front of them too because they're kind of hungry and stuff. But it's got to be done. It's just now we got them barricaded off now with the barbed wire. So
they're still sneaking through.
They're still sneaking through. It's not an easy job, but
Blake's right there.
they're just
coming through now.
They sneak in every once in a while.
We'll be back with the same question, but some quite different answers in a moment.
Can't really explain much. I just saw the planes flying around, and I was told the Americans had come. What happened today was that the Americans came in, and there was no problem with that.
They came, they were welcome, they were not opposed.
There was a fighting, you think? And there were flashing lights.
Fighting and flashing lights? Who was fighting?
The government.
Peace has happened today, and tranquility.
Allah be praised. Today what happened was something unique, not often found. We feel like fear has departed from us because the terrorist thugs who are ignorant have been robbing the people.
The country's security has been increased today. In the past, we have been robbed, we have been pillaged, terrorised. And from today on, we think that our lives will improve.
Let me tell you something. This gun is for protecting the property and for keeping the peace. This is not used for terrorizing people.
The gun has oppressed us because the gun has been used by terrorists, and we understand that the Americans have come to take the guns from the terrorists. We hope that after the disarming of the thugs and the safe distribution of the humanitarian aid, that the Americans can participate in the political construction of the country.
American people! Viva America! As you have seen the use of the American troops arrived our country this morning, and many people believe that the American troops will solve the other problems and will try to restore and the peace, and also to stabilize and to normalize our country. And some other people say they will do nothing because the only Somali people can solve their problems, they say.
I really can't say much about what happened because I'm a labourer. I earn my living with this wheelbarrow. I hope that some people have arrived, but really, I'm struggling for my existence. I don't have time to even pay attention to the happenings of today.
We heard initially that the Americans had landed from radio reports, and then in the streets the people were teasing themselves that the star on the Somalian flag had been taken from the American flag, and the Americans had come to get their star back. What happened today is that some soldiers came, and God sent them. We thank Him for it. We believe the coming of the Americans, which is what happened today, is in the interest of the Somali people, because they will be keeping the peace.
Half the city is peaceful, from the airport to the military airport to the harbour. People are out in force. They are unarmed and they are walking about peacefully without fear.
They wanted to see the big things. What kind of big things? Oh, man, ships. Ships. What kind of ships? Some of the ships are blue. Yeah. Some of them are black. Are black. And what are the ships doing? They're bringing in America. They're bringing Americans to Mogadishu? Yes.
US Marines maintaining security at the airport. Since the overnight shooting incident, which led to the deaths of 2 Somalis, there's been gun and mortar fire in the city. The reason unclear. Reports say that the battle was between rival gunmen in an area about half a mile from international troops. Casualties on the Somali side, so soon into Operation Hope, and before any food has reached the starving, is a diplomatic setback as far as the mission is concerned. But it was inevitable, sooner or later, given the realities of securing a city that is so unstable. The multinational force strength is barely a thin line right now, the vanguard of what is on the way. In the coming days, up to 30,000 more troops will arrive. The first commercially chartered flight landed with 300 Marines on board from Camp Pendleton in California. The combat units are still standing by at staging posts, stretching from Mogadishu to North Africa, Central Europe and the United States. The troop transporters will begin to accelerate in the coming days and reach full flow by next week if it goes according to plan. For the Marines already here, home is where they find it. The mission will take them through the Christmas holidays and into next year, perhaps even longer. Food, the main point of the exercise, has still not reached any of the hunger zones. By Doha, a critical area 150 miles west of Mogadishu, is said to be dangerous. Marines will have to go in there and secure that town before the hungry get any sight of the emergency supplies. Brent Sadler, CNN, Mogadishu. By Somalia's representative at the United Nations. 2 Somalis were killed and 7 injured. They've been taken aboard the USS Tripoli, one of the amphibious landing craft, which is now off Mogadishu's shoreline. Christian Amanpour, our correspondent here, confirmed this morning that 2 US Marines were involved in that incident, along with French legionnaires. She spoke to 2 Marines who confirmed that they had opened fire on the vehicle that passed through the checkpoint at speed, and the Marines confirmed hitting the vehicle when they opened fire. The 7 surviving Somalis, meanwhile, are said to be stable. Well, over at the airport just a few miles from here, the first waves of troops flew in. Operation Restore Hope continues to build up. And mortar fire in the city. The reason unclear. Reports say that the battle was between rival gunmen in an area about half a mile from international troops. Casualties on the Somali side, so soon into Operation Hope, and before any food has reached the starving, is a diplomatic setback as far as the mission is concerned. But it was inevitable, sooner or later, given the realities of securing a city that is so unstable. The multinational force strength is barely a thin line right now, the vanguard of what is on the way. In the coming days, up to 30,000 more troops will arrive. The first commercially chartered flight landed with 300 Marines on board from Camp Pendleton in California. The combat units are still standing by at staging posts, stretching from Mogadishu to North Africa, Central Europe and the United States. The rules of engagement are clear. They can open fire when necessary.
Check the magazine! How your magazine go? Flag safety should be out! Flag safety should be out! The magazine is fully seated! The shore is fully seated!
The troop transporters will begin to accelerate in the coming days and reach full flow by next week if it goes according to plan. Heat and insects make life difficult for all, and new arrivals seem more concerned about repelling bugs than the likelihood of any resistance. Yadira Katana sees her first mission as totally humanitarian.
Trying to help everybody not starve to death. Probably not in combat, hopefully.
For the Marines already here, home is where they find it. The mission will take them through the Christmas holidays and into next year, perhaps even longer. In town, Marine patrols have taken their first steps onto the streets of the capital, close to the Marine port. They're polite, but edgy. With the city's 2 main warlords meeting, face-to-face, for the first time in over a year of bitter rivalry, attempts to move politics and food aid in tandem are beginning. Will you join me again live just as a US helicopter flies straight over the top of the compound where the meeting is taking place between the 2 main warlords from North and South Mogadishu. Food, the main point of this exercise, has yet to reach any of the hunger areas. Baidoa, a critical region, is reported to be dangerous. The Marines will have to go out and secure not only Baidoa, but Badera, Kismayo down in the south of here, before any of these areas can be bombarded with the necessary food to prevent the massive starvation out there. I'm Brent Sadler, CNN, reporting live from Mogadishu.
Brent, earlier you had said that you don't expect much to come out of at least this initial meeting between the 2 clan leaders. Do they have any additional meetings planned? Have they agreed to any other meetings?
Well, Joe, I think the fact that the Ambassador Robert Oakley has got the 2 men together so quickly is a remarkable achievement in itself, given what's been going on here for the last couple of years. I think all we can expect is something cosmetic to come out of this meeting, agreement to continue the process of establishing greater security around Mogadishu, and support from both IDs and Ahmadi's people not to interfere with the military operations. There was talk yesterday that the French Minister for Humanitarian Affairs, Bernard Kouchner, wants to get involved with the political process, and there was a suggestion that the next meeting might take place aboard a warship offshore. But for the moment, we have no schedules on that, and that's not confirmed. Joey.
All right, thanks very much. That is CNN's Brett Sadler.
Sedan striderna mellan klanledarnas grupper bröt ut. Och i Somalias huvudstad Mogadishu har hjälptransporterna till de svältande nu återupptagits.
Hundratals glädjerusiga somalier samlades i oljebolaget Conoco här i Mogadishu när ledarna för de 2 stridande fraktionerna till slut enats om direkta samtal.
It was very cordial, very amiable. Everybody was hugging and enjoying the company of one another. And finally, we reached some agreements.
Tidigare försök till konstruktiva diskussioner i år mellan interimpresidenten Ali Mahdi och generalen Aidid har misslyckats. Och så sent som i natt drabbade deras styrkor samman och vi kunde höra artilleri utväxla dueller vid den så kallade gröna linjen, fronten som går mellan södra och norra Mogadishu. Flera döda och skadade har rapporterats. Efter mötet förklarades i en gemensam kommuniké att det nu finns en överenskommelse som rör 6 konkreta punkter. Den viktigaste är att det nu formellt råder eldupphör vid den gröna linjen. Dessutom ska samtliga mobila tunga vapen föras ut ur staden inom 48 timmar. Inga fientliga aktioner får förekomma och fraktionerna ska förenas i paraplyorganisationen USC. Vissa förhoppningar om lugnare tider finns nu här i Mogadishu. Å andra sidan är det för tidigt att verkligen lita på överenskommelsen. Både Aidid och Ali-Mahdi bevakar varandras drag noga. Ingen av dem tänker låta den andra få övertaget i kampen om makten.
Och ett nytt möte den här gången mellan alla rivaliserande klanledare ska äga
The two men were brought together at the U.S. Embassy. CNN's Brent Sadler has details.
Somalia's two main warlords, the men who've carved up the city between them ever since the old regime was toppled almost 2 years ago, met under a net of tight security. It was their first face-to-face meeting in a year. Ali Mahdi Mohammed, from his stronghold in the northern section of the city, agreed to cross the line with an armoured column covering his front and back. Earlier, mortar and gunfire was reported in the capital, but the Marine convoy made it to a secure area under the US flag with no sign of trouble. Warlord number 2, General Mohammed Farah Aidid, was provided with similar, heavily armed escorts. Given the distrust both men have of each other, their meeting, arranged by United Nations and US officials, was in itself a breakthrough. It took just over 4 hours to undo what the United Nations, on its own, had failed to achieve before, an accord that might have a chance of succeeding in an atmosphere of cordiality.
Everybody was hugging and enjoying the company of one another. And finally, we reached some agreements.
Those agreements included dismantling the front line dividing the city.
To break the artificial lines and the capital city of Mogadishu. Number 4, all the forces and their technicals should report in their respective designated locations outside the city within the next 48 hours.
The warlords went through the motions of sealing their agreement with handshakes, but only after appeals from the press. It was an embrace reflecting a sharp contrast to the way in which the two men have tried to brutally destroy each other in the vacuum left by the ousting of the old regime. Outside the US compound, a minor scuffle between two Somalis. Before, arguments like this would have been settled by guns, not fists. The multinational force strength is barely a thin line right now, the vanguard of what is on the way. The combat units are still standing by at staging posts, stretching from Mogadishu to North Africa, Central Europe and the United States. The new security plan has yet to prove itself on the ground. Food may be able to move sooner rather than later, but almost certainly not until security has been tackled outside as well as inside the capital. Brent Sadler, CNN, Mogadishu.
Get U.S. forces out and into the center part of the country. Key to that effort is unloading the Jack Loomis, the maritime preposition ship, which is at dockside in Mogadishu right now. The Jack Loomis carries a number of the supplies the Marines need before they are to go out in the inner part of Somalia. And officials tell us that they expect that ship will be unloaded and the Marines will be ready to go this weekend, probably on Sunday. But here at home, some of the troops are not making their way as fast as they thought they would. The 10th Mountain Division, the Army's group that was out of Fort Drum, New York, is being delayed 18 to 24 hours. Part of the reason is because the snow you see falling here as units of the 10th Mountain make their way over to the airport at Griffiths Air Base last evening. But apparently the snow there and high winds at McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey, one of the transition points, are the things that are holding up the planes getting in to pick up the troops, to take them out even though the troops are there. Now we'll get more on the situation in Somalia later today, about 3 hours from now in a Pentagon briefing here, and CNN will carry that briefing live. I'm Carl Rochelle, CNN reporting live.
Klanledarna betraktas som huvudaktörerna i det krig som har kostat 300 000 människoliv. Men idag när de träffades för första gången på ett år log de och kramade varandra. USA hade arrangerat mötet som resulterade i en 6-punktsplan. Bland annat ska all milis omedelbart lämna Mogadishu och en speciell försoningskommitté ska bildas. Men i den värst drabbade staden i Somalia märks ännu ingenting av FNs operation. Här härjar istället rövarbanden hämningslöst för att hinna lägga under sig så mycket som möjligt innan marinkåren anländer om något dygn. Vår Afrikakorrespondent rapporterar om Baidoa, dödens stad i Somalia.
När marinkåren drog in i Mogadishu tömdes stan snabbt på vapen och beväpnade glassoldater. Men de försvann inte. De senaste dagarna har städerna Baidoa och Kismayo drabbats av den värsta plundringen hittills, just av beväpnade gäng som flytt från Mogadishu. Hundratals har dödats bara de senaste dagarna.
There's been more shooting, there's been looting in the town, there's been this power vacuum that has led to the breakdown in security. So our staff have been in quite a bit of danger in this past week.
Baidoa kallas dödens stad här. 70% av alla barn under 5 år har redan dött av svält. Hjälporganisationerna har lyckats minska dödstalet från 300 barn om dagen till bara 40. De hoppas på marinkåren, men svälten kan bara stoppas av somalierna själva vill, säger de.
They need to solve their own problems, and I don't think outsiders can come in and solve their problems for them. It's issues to do with families and their clans and things, and they need to work it out. Otherwise, this is going to be a cycle that happens again. I mean, the UN troops can be here for a few months, and it's going to be peaceful during that time, but what's going to happen when they go again?
Imorgon kör en konvoj med mat ut från Mogadishu till Baidoa under kraftig bevakning av marinkårssoldater. Det är första gången på en månad mat kommer in till Baidoa. Tidigare konvojer har plundrats på vägen av beväpnade ligor.
Food is still needed in the Baidoa, Barakab area, the larger area, the Bay region. The food security is still a major problem, and World Vision and others have to continue to get food in the next several months. We're disappointed that the approach of the troops was not comprehensive, that they only came to Mogadishu, and we found that even in the last few days, since their arrival, it's been more dangerous for us in Baidoa than before they came.
Designated areas outside of Mogadishu, the nation's capital. Representatives of the two men say the talks went well. Meanwhile, problems remain, of course. The first food convoy that was to be escorted by U.S. Marines was canceled because of security concerns and problems with bureaucracy. The convoy was to take food from Mogadishu's port to the more isolated northern part of the city. The U.S. troops are advancing toward the Somali town of Baidoa, meanwhile, where death rates have been among the highest. The place is known as the City of Death. Over to the Pentagon now, where officials are coming in, led by Bob Hall, spokesman. Let's listen in.
Operation Restore Hope in Somalia. Again, today our briefers are Lieutenant General Marty L. Prantner, who is the Director of Operations for the Joint Staff, known as the J3, and Rear Admiral Michael W. Kramer, who is the Director of Current Intelligence Joint Staff and Command Support, also known as the J2. They'll both have